Hello, this is Ian Noel Camalotis for Sun Entertainment Media, and welcome to Here At. The Chicago International Film Festival, presented by Cinema Chicago, is the longest-running competitive film festival in North America. This film festival stands up there with the famous names of film festivals, such as the Toronto Film Festival, Sundance, and the Tribeca Film Festival, to name a few. Started by graphic artist Michael Kutza back in 1964, the Chicago International Film Festival has brought movies from all over the world and from independent US filmmakers that we normally do not see in our theaters. Notable directors that were featured with their early works include Martin Scorsese and John Carpenter. The Chicago International Film Festival, or the Chicago Film Fest for short, has helped foster better communication between people of diverse cultures through the art of film and moving image. As a competitive film festival, the Chicago Film Fest awards films in many categories, including the overall International Feature Film Competition, New Directors Competition, City and State, Outlook Competition that highlights the LGBT community, Live Action Short Film Competition, Documentary Short Film Competition, International Documentary Competition, and Animated Short Film Competition. The Chicago Film Fest has always been a beacon of art in the Chicagoland area, and this year was no exception. The year 2020 has brought about a very unique year for the Chicago Film Fest due to the global pandemic. But Cinema Chicago forged ahead in a safe way to help distract us from the goings-on in the world through the streaming process to screen films while also utilizing the classic drive-in theater in order to bring the world through the eyes of cinema. This year, I got to screen some of the films in the City and States Shorts program. Now, this comprises of a number of films in the Shorts program that are either made by Chicago filmmakers or are made in the city of Chicago or in the state of Illinois. So let's check out what we've got this year. Starting off with one of three films that are in the documentary short competition from the City and States program is the film The Reversal by Jennifer Boles. Now, this film uses still images, black and white photographs, showing the construction and the evolution of the reversal of the Chicago River. What I really liked about this is there was no dialogue. It used the images showing the timeline as everything progressed over the years, and actually had a steady seam soundtrack to show more of a focus on the construction itself and also what the images were showing. There was no music, there was no dialogue, just simple background noise and soundtrack as the photographs progressed on. There was just straight transitions from photograph to photograph, and you were able to piece together what the film was about if you didn't know already. Next up, we have Grizzlies by Alex Heller. Now, this film is in the live-action short film competition, and it's an interesting, fun little story here. It tells a story of Allison, who's a 30-year-old who still deals with her very overprotective mother and shows her reliance on her mother because of what she's experienced over her life, and if she can actually evolve out of that overprotectiveness and reliance on her mother. Very fun comedy. If you get a chance to check it out, do check it out. Here we have the Sacred Brick Technology. This is another one of those films in the documentary short competition, and Ian Bertarelli actually presents us with a history of brick making in Chicago and why it became an importance when it comes to building buildings in Chicago, especially after the Great Chicago Fire. Talks about how they're made, how it transformed the economy and the importance in Chicago construction, and actually makes something that you wouldn't normally find interesting, actually more interesting than you think. Here we have The Ephemeral Orphanage by Lisa Barcy. Now, this one is the only film in the City and States program that is actually in the competition for animated shorts. And this stop motion film uses stop motion using paper, characters, and figures, as well as other objects, to create a story about an orphanage that collects torn, tattered, and abandoned paper doll children and raises them, and shows their evolution in terms of how they see themselves, and also an imagination that actually creates an alternate reality for them in terms of what they hope they would eventually become and the changes that would like to have. It's very unique, especially when it comes to stop motion. Stop motion is not being used much anymore, as well as the fact that it's using paper stop motion is also something you don't see often either. Not especially now with our CG effects when it comes to films. If you ever get a chance to see this film, do check it out. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future this becomes a full feature-length film. Here we have another one of the competitors in the live-action short film competition, and Orlando Leroy brings us the film Pegasus. Now, this story tells of a black man who, after an altercation with the Chicago Police Department, tries to run and flee. He at first tries to hide out with his father and his child, but with the CPD closing in, he ends up running away and discovering a rocket ship that he uses to escape to his freedom in the stars. It's a very kind of interesting and unexpected turn for a film like this, especially since it almost looks like a kind of more of a escape in a different way, and has a little bit of a sci-fi aspect to it, especially when trying to highlight a kind of issue that is happening in today's age. A Mystery to Me by Ben Strang is another one and the third of the films in this program that is part of the documentary competition for documentary shorts. And this film talks about Vanetta, who is an inspiring woman who actually fights against a muscular disorder that's very rare and has been affecting her life, and how she pushes through that in order to live her life the way she wants. It's very well constructed, and the storytelling actually of her forging ahead actually shows how she struggled a lot with the muscular disorder, how it affected everybody in her life, and how she forges on to live her life the way she wants it. Here we have another one of the films that's in the live-action short film competition, Swipe Up Vivian by Hannah Wellever. And this is a film that takes place in maybe the not-so-distant future of Chicago. And it takes place when there's a mandatory curfew enacted after some great tragedy. But the real story is more about the agoraphobic Vivian, who's told by her sister to at least continue to make connections with people, even if she doesn't like to go out. And she tries out an app where she meets a woman by the name of Katrina. As they slowly get to know each other a little bit more, Vivian begins to open up and tries to see a way to be able to connect with people, even if it's not in person. It's something that, after watching the film, it almost makes me give me the vibes of a Black Mirror episode, and who knows, it might be something that we might see in the future. So do get the chance to watch it, and if not, just know that if this ends up showing up on a sci-fi film like this is where this inspiration came from. Finally, we reached the last film in the City and States program, and is actually the City and State Competition Award winner this year. And it is the short Patois by Andre Mir and Daniel Elston, which tells the story of a black teenager who is being raised by her mother, who is from out of the country, in terms of the traditions of where she's from. She's not too much of a fan of this, as she feels that it separates her from everyone else that she is friends with at school, especially when it comes to her ethnic traditions and the fact that she lives in the United States. It's not until she meets a friend who needs help and she uses a lot of those ethnic traditions, or at least what the traditions that she was taught by her mom, to help this friend out, that she learns the importance of that and is more open to her ethnic heritage. It is one of the great films, and it actually is led by Chicago actress Mariah Gordon, who helps enhance the story very well and open many eyes through this film, Patois. So if you get a chance to check it out, do check it out. Otherwise, be on the lookout for Mariah Gordon in the future. Well, this year I was only able to screen a few films, a lot less than I normally do each year at the Chicago International Film Festival, especially for feature-length films. However, the films I did see this year did not disappoint. So let's check out what I saw this year and what to expect and how well they were. Here we have the film And Tomorrow the Entire World, directed by Julia von Heinz from Germany. Now, this is the North American premiere for this film, and it talks about the story of an idealistic law student, Louisa, who's brought into an Antifa community in Berlin by her friend Beth. Although the residents of the community are for more nonviolent protest, a small group led by charismatic Alpha, who she starts to fall for, starts to push for more radical action, which draws Louisa into a difficult fight where Louisa must choose the path of her longtime best friend and her attraction to Alpha. The film is actually the winner of the Silver Hugo Award for Best Ensemble Performance, as all the actors in the film really drew us in the story and really interacted very well. There's no denying why this film won that Silver Hugo Award, and when you get the chance to see, you get to see how these interactions with the characters really tie in together, and you can see the realism between them. Here we have the film Charlatan by Agnieszka Holland from the Czech Republic, Ireland, Poland, and Slovakia. And this is based on the life of Czech herbalist and faith healer Jan Mikulasek, who had become the go-to person for anyone who had any health needs. Now, Jan Mikulasek treated both poor and wealthy. He didn't really turn away any of his patients at all. His last relationship, however, led to the downfall and persecution for charlatanism by the new communistic government administration, although he had treated previous government officials before. Now, this film was well constructed, and with the constant flashbacks intermixed with the film, it added depth to what made Jan Mikulasek who he was as the film progresses on. Here we have the North American premiere of Are There Any Crybabies Around by Sato Takuma. Now, this film is one of the films in the new director's competition, especially for Sato Takuma, and it tells the story of a young parent, Tasuku, who has been an irresponsible young adult who has been avoiding a lot of his responsibilities in his small town, and after he is caught by a news crew running naked and drunk through the town during a very important festival where men dress up as ogres to scare children into behaving, he has to run away to Tokyo. But after a number of years, he struggles to come to terms with his lack of taking responsibility and goes back home to try to rectify those relationships that he had broken and try to become the responsible adult he was supposed to be. Here we have a film starring Katja Herbers, who is of the TV show Evil fame, and she plays a columnist in this film, The Columnist, by Ivo van Aert from the Netherlands, and she plays the character Femke in a revered publication in the Netherlands, where she's constantly critiqued, gaslighted, trolled, and thrown sexist insults that anger her so much, especially through social media. It gets to a point where she is really suffering from all these comments that the ridicule reaches a high point where she no longer can endure and begins to take a revenge tale, confronting everyone who has spoken out against her on social media in the darkest of ways. This is a funny dark comedy and also slasher in a way that highlights the dangers of focusing on other people's opinions, especially in social media. So when you get the chance to check this out, it does highlight something that a lot of celebrities and people in general deal with in their everyday lives, regardless of how old they really are. What would you do if a fellow student went missing and you wanted to help out in any way you can? Let's add on that you're a journalism student, a grad student at a university. Well, that's what this film, Finding Ying Ying, is all about. Directed by, at the time, a grad student at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, Jian Jenny Shi. And this is a film produced by MTV and is a film that Jenny Shi began as a way to help find a fellow classmate, Ying Ying, who was also from China, studying here in the United States. Eventually, the film takes her on a turn and a journey that she didn't expect, which leads to the discovery and finding that Ying Ying was actually kidnapped, raped, and murdered, and the fact that it took 2 years for this whole ordeal to reach court. She documents her family's visit, the reaction of students, and the whole process from beginning to end to the capture, and also the remaining results of what happens after the court case when it comes to Ying Ying herself. Again, this started off as a small documentary to be able to help find Ying Ying, but in the end, it turns out to be a lot more than what Jenny Shi expected. When you get the chance to check it out, it is a very important film, especially if you heard about this in the news, and especially if you had gone to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign or lived in the state of Illinois and had heard about this story. It seems there's quite a few documentaries that I saw this year, and this one is no exception, especially since this is in the competition for the International Documentary Competition. And this is a documentary about Stanley Kubrick through what others have said about him, but especially through an interview that is very rare that he gave with one interviewee. And it shows this lengthy interview talking about the process of what he thinks and how he puts together the film, both in his mind and what his expectations are. What's nice about it is the film is shown through the eyes of the films that he had made, of course interviews that other people have had talking about him, but also this perfectly made dollhouse which they keep intermixing in throughout the whole documentary, showing Stanley Kubrick's need for perfection. I think the film was very well done and is one of those that really puts us a little bit more into the mindset of Stanley Kubrick himself.
آقا نادری کسی نیست اینا رو از من تحویل بگیره چیکارشون کنم؟
خب من چیکار کنم الان؟ خانم میبرده پیش مینا. حمید
مینا
خواهر زدم تو اتاق من، برو بده به اون، بده در ورودی، بزن به در و دیوار. این همه جا خالی داره که.
در جریان باشه فقط دیگه، من میخوام برم فیلم ببینم.
باشه شما برو به کارت برس، من میفرستم یکی ازت تحویل بگیره. من در جریانم الان. کجا میذاری اینا رو؟
میذارم در پشتی.
آقا حمید فقط یکم بشین اونورتر، بازرسا پیداشون نشه یهو.
اونورتر بشینم؟ جا نداره اونورتر.
تو کار خودتو بکن.
اون در خروج اضطراریه مثلا.
شما هم کار خودتو بکن.
Here we have Shahram Mokri's film Careless Crime, which is making its North American premiere. And this film is coming from Iran. This is the film that won the Silver Hugo Award winner for the jury prize. And to tell you a little bit more about it, it's a film that intermixes a movie within the movie with the actual goings on in the story. And it tells the tale of a man who wants to recreate a crime that was done many years ago prior to the Iranian Revolution, where a famous theater house was set on fire. Many died, but most of the reason why many of those died was because of the bad conditions of the theater itself, with the overpacking and the lack of making sure that a lot of the safety measures were accessible, including exits. As the story progresses, we get to see this man plan out with others this whole crime. Meanwhile, it's intermixed with the film that's showing itself, which a lot of people keep going to watch during this theater's opening. With the intermixing of the film, it really draws us into the importance of theater, and actually is almost, in my feeling, the love letter to cinema itself, especially with its unique twist ending. It's no wonder that this film won the jury prize, the Silver Hugo Award, for the international competition. And if you do get a chance to check it out, I think it's a very good watch. The Dark and the Wicked, directed by Brian Bertino, is a United States Hollywood film, and I highlight that mainly because it should be coming out in theaters soon if it's not out by the time this video comes out, or it's probably in a streaming service already. And to tell you a little bit about more of the story, it's a story that talks about a brother and sister who return home to help their mother care for their dying father. Now, ignoring the warnings by their mother to leave and to get away while she takes care of her dying husband, strange occurrences happen as a malicious entity actually stalks anyone who's associated with their parents and put them in a lot of grave danger. It's a very eerie film. I love the cinematography because it's so unsettling and dreary. It does have some violent moments too, but this mix of dread and horror of this supernatural film is a really good one for horror film fans to check out. So when you get the chance to see this film, especially you horror fans, this is a film I would recommend. Finally, we reach to the film Undine, directed by Christian Petzold. And this is a very interesting twist to the Little Mermaid type of legend. And this film tells a story about a freelance historian, Undine, who gives talks on urban development and the history of Berlin to international guests. However, the real story is after her boyfriend Johannes breaks up with her and breaks her heart, she meets and falls for Christoph. However, because of her past that keeps haunting her and reminding her of something that she needs to complete, especially for those, or especially the person who betrayed her, Christoph ends up suffering an accident due to her running from her past. Now she has to decide what she will need to do, whether she needs to confront her past, or if there's anything else that she can do. This mysterious romantic fantasy drama explores more realism to that kind of legend that the Little Mermaid has, yet keeps it grounded in reality as much as it can. You actually get drawn into the story and you forget that there is a fantasy element to it, and in the end it's more of a searching for what is more important in your life. Although limited in what I could see this year, the Chicago Film Fest opened its doors in a different way than before and provided the much needed distraction we all need. Please do support and keep in touch with the Chicago International Film Festival at www.chicagofilmfestival.com. And hopefully we can gather again in the future to share our love for films. This has been Ian Noel Camalotis for Centertainment Media, and thank you for watching.